Okay, so it being 7 o'clock and we have a quorum, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. We're still doing meetings remotely. Any votes taken at tonight's meeting will be taken via roll call. And with that, I'm going to do a roll call right now just to ensure that everybody can be heard. So Heather Sroka.
Yeah, can you
Chris
hear me?
Menard.
Here.
Jay Simeone.
Oh, wait a minute. Here.
Dave Passios.
Here.
Peter Beardmore.
Here.
And I don't see Evan yet, but I have not heard that he won't be here, so I assume he will be joining us. And then with that, I don't have any announcements. I don't know if anybody else does. I don't know if everybody has had an opportunity to take a look at the meeting minutes that are in the OneDrive.
I did.
Okay. And then with that, I've already lost the agenda.
I don't think they were on the agenda.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee have a public comment? Does anybody in the public have a public comment? Oh, hi, Evan. Evan, do you want to just chime in so we know that we can hear you?
Hello there.
Hi. Okay. Then with that, no public comments. We
Hey,
will go
Terry.
ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I just wanted to bring something up, and perhaps this is something that either the town manager or can address, or perhaps we could have somebody from PAC address later. But I did have a conversation with somebody this week who was quite frustrated with their ability to connect during public comment, as well as to be able to see on the local access TV, Facebook, all the various outlets that we have been streaming to in the past. I understand there have been some problems over the course of the last several weeks, and I just would like some sort of update on that, and to know if this is a problem that's been addressed.
I can answer that. So the problem has been identified and addressed. So they think they solved the issue that was happening with the flashing. So they worked it out with the server, Castus server vendor.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, wait, I just want to piggyback on that. When was it fixed? Because I was watching the boys basketball game yesterday and it was very poor quality streaming.
When was that game filmed? Because
It was live.
So Tuesday?
Oh, yeah, yesterday.
Okay, because the selectmen's meeting yesterday worked fine. So we'd have to
Okay.
ask.
I was just, maybe it's because it's they're portable or where they're moving. I don't know, but it was really bad quality.
I think it was through Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others? And if you do, no, okay. Then we'll go ahead and move into the town manager's initial 2022 budget presentation. The package should be available on the town website. I don't know if you did the updated version to the town website based on
No,
health.
I just did that today, so I'll
Okay,
update the website, and it's pretty minor tweaks with one new slide.
okay,
So all the content is pretty much the same. But so to start off, we can go to the next slide. So the process starts out with the capital planning committee. They began in September and met with various departments in November and December. And the town manager, I sent the target budgets to departments in December, which were due back on January 7th. The capital planning committee finalized their prioritization of projects on January 5th. And I presented the fiscal 22 capital plan and the 5-year forecast the week of January 18th. And as required by charter, I'm presenting the preliminary budget recommendation mid-February. So the goal in creating the recommendation is to create a balanced budget that funds the operating budgets that use recurring revenues at the current service levels with some exceptions. The original target budget that was used in December and the preliminary budget both use conservative revenue projections. It meets all the town's financial policies, and certified free cash was not used on the operating budget and abides by the town's financial policies. The capital plan includes $688,825 of free cash, $180,418 of free cash towards the OPEB liability costs, which per our town financial policies, 10% of the previous year's certified free cash, and deposits $100,000 into the regular stabilization account for the town's policy. In this budget recommendation, I'm proposing to establish a health insurance stabilization fund that would prepare us for any potential increases in the fiscal 23 year due to 2 years of significant savings from holiday health insurance premiums. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now the budget baseline is built upon the target budget, and these next couple of slides, I'll review what's included on both the revenue side and expenditure side in the target budget. On the revenue side, property taxes includes adding 2.5% to the previous year's levy, our estimated new growth, which is $280,590, and the debt exclusion amounts. For state aid, it uses a level funded amount of state aid based on the fiscal 21 state aid figures that were approved by the state in December of 2020. For the local receipts, it includes adding a $50,000 increase over the previous fiscal year's estimate for motor vehicle excise, but level funds all other local receipt categories. For other available funds, the target budget did not address the use of free cash, and the other sources of available funds is similar to the previous fiscal year sources. On the expenditure side, it level funds the cherry sheet offsets, state and county charges, and choice and charter assessments using the fiscal 21 amounts. And departments were sent target budgets in December that included all known contractual increases and level funded other expense categories, except it included costs associated with an additional full-time patrolman and career firefighter, an additional $50,000 for pavement management, the known principal and interest debt payments for fiscal 22. It included a 3% rate increase for health insurance for active employees and a 5% rate increase for retirees, a 5% increase for all general insurances, a 10% increase for Worcester County retirement, and a 2.5% increase for the Lunenburg Public Schools and Montechusett Regional Technical. And it included a 15% increase for solid waste and recycling disposal program. There are still some unknowns on the revenue side. The preliminary budget uses the governor's proposal for state aid, which is an overall increase of 0.17% from the fiscal 21 state aid figure approved in December. New growth is also estimated at $280,590 based on current building permits and new growth for personal property accounts. On the expenditure side, we are waiting for liability and workers' comp insurance renewal costs, and we know we can level fund the police and fire injured on duty insurance. Both the target budget and the preliminary budget reflect the 3% rate increase for active employees and 5% rate increase for retirees. And just a note, that I'll talk about further. Those were the tweaks in tonight's presentation where we received our renewal rate yesterday from Maya. The Money Tech assessment assumes a 2.5% increase, but we will have our actual assessment by the beginning of March. Another unknown at this point is the solid waste and recycling program. Our current contract expires June 30th, and we'll be going out to bid in the near future to have a contract in place by July 1st. So far we're faring well with snow and ice, and we have been able to cover deficits in previous years with interdepartmental transfers, but there's currently $834,942 of unexpended free cash in the preliminary budget that could be used to help offset any remaining deficits. When we look at revenues, there are 4 sources of revenues for the town, and they include property tax, state aid, local receipts, and other available funds. Property tax includes residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property tax. State aid includes Chapter 70, public elementary and secondary school funding, unrestricted general government aid, among other categories. Local receipts includes motor vehicle excise taxes, penalties and interest collected by the tax collector, fees from various permits and licenses by different departments, ambulance fees, solar net metering payments, fines, and the local option meals tax. Other available funds includes free cash, which is the unexpended balance from the previous fiscal year as certified by the Department of Revenue. Indirect costs charged back to the sewer for employee costs, town services, and their debt payments. Indirect costs charged back to the public access enterprise for employee costs, and revenue from the artificial turf revolving fund, and the payment from MSBA for an old school project. Next slide. This chart shows a breakdown of the revenue source by percentage. Property taxes are our largest single revenue source at approximately 66% of our total revenues. State aid is our second largest revenue source at 21% of our total revenues. Local receipts at 7%, and available funds makes up 6% of our total revenue available. Some noteworthy highlights for fiscal 22 is the governor's state aid proposal is less than the fiscal 21 increase. The estimate for local receipts is more conservative than previous years due to the current economic times, and these being elastic revenues. Available funds reflects an increase from the previous year. The current recommendation calls for the use of slightly more free cash than the previous year, and currently recommends using funds from the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund towards a large vehicle purchase in the fiscal 22 capital plan. When we look at revenues from property taxes, we take the prior year base at a maximum of 2.5% increase per Proposition 2.5, add in an estimate for property tax new growth, include the debt exclusions for the school and pavement management project to obtain the maximum allowable tax levy for fiscal 22. This is a slide that shows a 5-year history of our new growth. The estimate for being used right now for new growth is $280,590, and we'll continue to monitor this and adjust it upwards or downwards as we get closer to town meeting. This budget recommendation includes the governor's state aid proposal, which was released on January 27th. And the budget proposal provides for an additional $49,680 in Chapter 70 funds, which is a 0.6% increase, an additional $39,302 in unrestricted general government aid, which is a 3.5% increase. The total estimate is $9,444,372, which is an increase of 0.17% over the final fiscal 21 state aid amount that was approved in December 2020. And is an increase of 1.45% over the fiscal 21 final budget that was approved at the fall special town meeting, as that was prior to the state finalizing state aid. This slide shows a history of state aid over the 10 years and the estimate being used for fiscal year 2022. Local receipts is another category of revenues. The estimate being used for local receipts is an increase of 1.6% or 50,000 over the previous year's estimates. Next slide. And this slide is detailing the actual receipts for fiscal 19 and fiscal 20 and the estimates used for fiscal 21 and 22. The finance director has been closely monitoring our revenues this year compared to the same quarters last fiscal year. And our revenues overall are trending at about 3% higher so far at this point than last year. And local receipts are trending at about 9% higher than last year at this time. Although we just had a motor vehicle commitment that was 90,000 less than the same commitment last year. So we're maintaining our conservative local receipt estimate at this time. We think that's the most prudent direction, but we'll continue to monitor our local receipts closely and make any appropriate adjustments. Next slide. Revenue estimates for available funds includes the use of $969,243 from certified free cash that is available for appropriation to offset the fiscal 22 capital plan, make a deposit into the OPEB trust fund, deposits funds into the regular stabilization account. It also includes transferring $211,000 from the special purpose stabilization fund to pay for a large DPW vehicle in the fiscal 22 plan, the MSBA reimbursement amount of $534,779 for an old school building project, the indirect costs for town services and debt payments attributed to sewer enterprise, water enterprise, and the cable access enterprise, and the use of $44,318 from the artificial turf revolving fund to pay for the associated costs for the artificial turf fund debt for fiscal 22. This slide is a breakdown of the other available funds being used to fund the fiscal 22 budget. This year included some slides about grants, earmarks, and federal and state funding that we received in fiscal 21 that are outside the town appropriation. And I won't go through all of these different grants, earmarks, and federal and state funding, but as you can see, we receive a significant amount by department and overall as a town and a school. On to expenditures. So when we talk about expenditures, expenditures are a reflection of the cost of providing a level of services to residents of all ages in our community, to visitors traveling or doing business in Lunenburg, and maintaining or improving our assets. As a town, we provide services to students, we provide health and human services to seniors and veterans, recreational services, and public safety to all. The balance is to provide the best level of service given the available resources, maintain our assets, and put aside funding for anticipated capital and into our rainy day fund. The expenditures are divided into functional categories that include general government, central purchasing, police and fire, other protection, DPW, solid waste, health and sanitation, council on aging, veterans, the Lunenburg Public Schools, Monty Tech, library, debt service, unclassified general government, and retirement, our retirement assessment. It also includes cherry sheet offset charges and state and county charges. Also on the expenditure side is the sewer enterprise, solid waste enterprise, and cable access. The capital requests and other warrant articles that may have a financial impact also have to be included on the expenditure side, but are proposed to be offset by free cash. Now looking at the target budget highlights, in December, departments were sent budget documents and were asked to meet a target budget that included known contractual increases for union employees, increases per the salary administration plan for non-union employees, and increases for staff with contractual agreements in place, and level funded all expense categories. The target budgets included as well, these are highlights, For the police, 35,000 for an additional patrol officer, 81,000 for an additional career firefighter, 50,000 for pavement management under DPW, 2.5% increase or 528,000 for the Lunenburg Public Schools, 2.5% increase or 22,000 for Monty Tech, 150,000 or a 10% increase for Worcester Regional Retirement, 179,000 more than the final fiscal 21 budget based on a 3% rate increase and a 5% rate increase for retirees for health insurance, and a 15% increase or $30,000 increase for the solid waste and recycling program. When we look at above target request, when departments submit their budgets back, there were the following highlights from above target requests. For the general government, included 23,000 more than the target for additional hours for the assistant town clerk. This is the second year that request has been made. Increased software costs under IT, and $9,000 for a part-time board and committee clerk position. For the police, an additional 15,000 more than the target, mostly in the shift differential line, and additional funds in the patrolman salaries line to fill a vacant detective position. The fire, an additional 22,000 more than the target to increase the firefighter training line, increase the annual replacement line for turnout gear by 10,000, and small increases in other lines. For facilities, included 43,000 more than the target to restore a facilities position. And for the DPW, $24,000 more than the target for cemetery, 39,000 more to restore an assistant mechanic position, 28,000 more for snow removal, 3,000 more for highway overtime. For the library, included 24,000 more than the target for increases across most of their accounts. And for the Lunenburg Public Schools, the total original request, it was 154,000 over the target based on the superintendent's budget that was presented in January that showed a 3.23% increase. The preliminary budget funds the target for general government, funds the target and above target requests for additional hours for the assistant town clerk, the increase in software costs, and the board and committee clerk position. For the police, it funds the target budget for additional full-time officer and the above target request for the shift differential and funds for filling the vacant detective position. For the fire, it funds the target budget and 21,000 of the above target requests. For facilities, it includes an additional 50,000 for a facilities position. In fiscal 20, the budget shifted funds from a vacant facilities position to contracted services, and this would restore the department back to 2 staff members. For the DPW, it includes an additional 50,000 for pavement management, an additional 3,000 for overtime, an additional 23,000 for the cemetery. It does not fund the assistant town mechanic or additional funds for snow removal. For Worcester Regional Retirement, our assessment actually came in at a 1.92% increase, or 29,000 more than the previous fiscal year. Health insurance, the preliminary budget reflects a 3% rate increase for active employees and a 5% rate increase for retirees. And based on the, I'll talk to later, what the actual rate increase came at, but based on the preliminary budget and the holiday premium that we also received, it will reduce that line item by 110,000 for an overall increase of 94,372 from the previous fiscal year. The Lunenburg Public Schools, the recommendation fully funds the superintendent's proposed budget that was presented in January to the school committee through the reduction from the holiday premium reduction, as well as more recently yesterday, the additional savings that we'll achieve through the lower rate renewal that we're going to see. For solid waste and recycling program, it maintains that 15% increase as an estimate. This slide is a breakdown on expenditures. And if we look at overall budget is gonna, the operating cost for the budget increases by $1,106,109. The largest increase out of that total dollar change is for the Lunenburg Public Schools at 47% of that amount. The next highest is for the fire department at 13% of that amount, and unclassified general government is 12%. The debt service is decreasing by $136,928. This slide shows how each category of general fund expenditures increased over the previous fiscal year. So it shows the final fiscal 21 amounts and the preliminary budget for fiscal 22 and that percentage change. This slide is a breakdown of the total debt service for fiscal 22. Debt service for fiscal 22 will be $4,562,594, which includes general fund debt, sewer related debt, water related debt, the MSBA school project debt, and exempt debt. This slide you'll recognize from the 5-year forecast, and it just shows our current debt schedule with the different thresholds. When we look at expenditures for non-discretionary, it includes our insurances, and the estimates right now for liability and workers' comp include a 4% estimated increase. Our actual renewals are received in March. The police and fire injured on duty insurance is level funded, and the health insurance renewal estimate used in the preliminary budget is a 3% rate increase for active and 5% rate increase for retirees. This partially is based on we participated in the post-65 program, which moved a small number of employees that were not eligible for Medicare Part A, as they did not contribute to Social Security. So by participating in the post-65 program with Maya, it reduced our active renewal rate by 2% and reduced our overall claims for active plans. And our actuarial estimates that it will save us $5 to $6 million in our OPEB liability. For a breakdown of what the health insurance number in the budget includes, it's 37% of the health insurance budget is for active town employees, 17% is for retiree health insurance for town employees, and 47% is retiree health insurance for school employees. And without the holiday premium, the number before yesterday was 943,000 out of the 2.55 million for active, and school retirees account for 1.193 million of that amount, and town retirees account for 417,000 of that amount. Retiree renewal insurance is based on calendar year, and as I stated earlier, it's using a 5% increase. And we did receive our health insurance renewal yesterday. We'll talk about that. The rate range that Maya released in January at the MMA meeting related that all members would be receiving rates of increase or decrease based on a range of minus 0.6%, an average of 2.9%, and a maximum of 6.8%. And that they also announced at that time all their members would be receiving a premium holiday, but this time was a full month and not half a month. This equates, these are estimates, to between 233,000 and 240,000 for savings for active plans for health insurance for school personnel, between 59,000 and 60,000 for active plans for town personnel, and 17,000 in savings for town retiree health insurance, and approximately 32,000 in savings for school retiree health insurance. And I am proposing, like I said earlier, in this budget because of these significant savings that we may not realize in the fiscal 23 budget, to create a health insurance stabilization fund with the unappropriated tax revenues to offset this expense. This will create greater fiscal sustainability for our operating budget. So we received yesterday from Maya our rate renewal. It came in at a 0.47% increase for active employees. This is estimated to save the town an additional $55,850 in the health insurance line, and in the school side, an additional $71,200 in savings. Another component that is that we're currently working on is we met with the Public Employee Committee today to discuss adding a voluntary vision plan. And if the PEC does agree to this, this would mean a flat renewal rate, a 0% increase for active employee insurance plans. This would save, on top of the 0.47% savings noted above, it would save $6,590 for the town side of the insurance, and in the school budget, it would save an additional $12,890. This slide shows a summary of the member data for our Worcester County retirement assessment. We have 168.57 active members with an average age of 45.6, with an average service of 8.7 years, with a total valuation of salaries of $6,631,003 and an average salary of $38,778. We have 95 retiree members and beneficiaries with an average age of 73.5 and a total annual pension of $1,942,829 and an average annual pension of $20,451. We have 3 accidental disabled members with an average age of 75.6, total pension amount of $77,886, and an average pension of $25,962. We have 1 disabled member that is 54.7 in age with an annual pension cost of $6,828, and 51 inactive members with a value of $715,773. The fiscal 22 retirement assessment is $28,926 higher than the fiscal 21 assessment, or a 1.92% increase. And the increases and decreases in assessments are driven by the normal employer costs, which are the cost of benefits earned during the year, and the amortization for the unfunded accrued liability. The valuations for the assessments are done every 2 years. The assessments for fiscal 22 and fiscal 23 are based on valuation results as of January 1st, 2020. Valuation results are based on active member data, which is compensation, date of birth, membership data, date, gender, and member contribution. And it also is based on retiree member data, the value of assets, and the actuarial accrued liability for liabilities that were accrued, but the community was not required to fund before the law was changed in 1988. If you look at a breakdown of our fiscal 22 assessment, which is the employer normal costs, which is the cost of benefits earned during the year minus the contributions employees make, and the administrative costs from Worcester County Retirement, and the payment on our unfunded accrued liability, we also receive an early payment discount of $28,213 if paid on July 1st. Our payment for the unfunded accrued liability will end in 2036. This is a breakout of our assessment, separating out the assessments for town, sewer, school, and staff for both town and school. 62.7% is town, 35.6% is school, and 0.97% sewer, and 0.73% is town and school. For non-appropriated expenditures, both the cherry sheet charges and the cherry sheet offsets have decreased from the previous fiscal year. And the budget reflects the overlay account being funded at 120,000 and the tax title being level funded. Another category of expenditures are warrant articles that relate to the fiscal 22 capital plan, transfer of funds to the OPEB trust fund to continue addressing the town's unfunded liability, and a deposit into the regular stabilization fund per the town's financial policy. The recommendation is to use free cash for a portion of the capital plan, transfer $180,418 of free cash into the OPEB trust fund per the town's policy, and deposit $100,000 into the regular stabilization fund. The fiscal 22 capital plan recommendation includes funding for all the priority recommendations made by the capital planning committee. The capital planning committee received 23 capital requests for a total of over 2.5 million. And the recommendation at this point in time is to fund 13 of the 19 ranked requests for a total of $1,499,825. The preliminary budget includes funding the capital plan with $600,000 from tax revenues, $688,825 from free cash, and transferring $211,000 from the special purpose stabilization fund. Some recap of the less discretionary and discretionary expenditures. The budget recommendation recommends including one additional police officer, one additional firefighter, restores a facilities position that was eliminated in fiscal 20, adds 8 hours for the assistant town clerk, includes seasonal help for the cemetery, includes an education and enforcement coordinator position that is entirely funded by grant funds, includes a part-time minutes clerk position, and it exceeds the Lunenburg Public Schools priority needs as identified in the superintendent's 3.23% budget. So as far as the Lunenburg Public Schools, the 2.5% increase, as I've stated, is all the priority needs have been addressed with the reduction from the holiday premium and the additional savings that were received from our original estimate of a 3% rate increase for active insurance. And now it's a 0.47% increase and could even go as low as a flat rate renewal. We also recently heard an announcement from the state regarding a second round of elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding in the amount of $588,834 that is available until September 30th, 2023. For the Montechusett Regional High School, the preliminary budget recommendation stands at a 2.5% increase, and we're still waiting our assessment that we should receive at the beginning of March. Monty Tech also received SR2 funding in the amount of $661,823 that we hope will positively impact the assessments. The preliminary budget presented leaves an unappropriated balance of $494,000 that can backfill any potential increases beyond the target budget estimate. So the preliminary budget estimate for the Montechusett Regional Vocational School Assessment, Solid Waste and Recycling Program increases, and allows flexibility to transfer funds to a health insurance stabilization fund to offset future health insurance funding increases. The preliminary budget recommendation also funds certain increases to address the town's need for increased public safety services for police and fire, staffing needs for the facilities and cemetery divisions under DPW, administrative support needs. It funds contractual increases and adheres to the town's financial policies. The preliminary budget recommendation also exceeds the funding priorities in the proposed superintendent's budget that was presented to the school committee in January. The recommended budget does not fully meet all the needs requested by department heads. Given the information known at this point in time in regards to revenue projections and known expenses, the proposed fiscal 22 budget aims to address the needs of the community, maintain the current service levels with some exceptions to address staffing deficiencies, uses recurring revenues for the operating budget, and it meets all the town's financial policies and ensures long-term fiscal sustainability. The current recommendation also leaves an undesignated balance of $834,000 of free cash that can be used for financial warrant articles, increased funding for the fiscal 22 capital plan. It can be also used on the snow and ice deficit if needed, or deposited into stabilization. Looking ahead, so this slide which was also used in the 5-year forecast, shows projected debt capacity and how what would be available under each of our current thresholds in the projected debt for the next 5 years. This slide is a chart that shows the 5-year tax rate increase, includes the budget figures in the preliminary budget recommendation for fiscal 22. And based on the current recommendation, the tax rate would increase by 20 cents next year. So the budget calendar, next, the Finance Committee will be meeting with all the departments starting February 18th for a more in-depth review of their program services and needs. The House and Ways and Means budget is finalized by the end of April. The Senate budget is announced at the end of May. Town meeting is Saturday, May 1st. The annual town election is May 15th. And the state budget, the conference committee is done by June 30th, with state aid typically finalized by July, with last year being anomaly. And this attached schedule with all the meetings with the various departments. This is also up on the website under news and announcements. There's a number of documents there that are also on there's a financial page with all related capital plans and financial forecasts, all that information. But I want to close. I did this on Tuesday as well, just to thank everyone that helped develop the preliminary budget recommendation, including the capital planning committee. They invested a significant amount of time and hours into developing their recommendation, as well as the department heads, the superintendent, the school business manager, and especially Karen Brochu, who's my primary support and is a huge asset to the town.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Karen is a huge asset to the town. Yeah, I would concur. It's a lot of information. I'm going to assume that folks have had an opportunity to take a look at the budget and also review the presentation from Tuesday night, and probably have some questions lined up. I think I just want to start with the health insurance stabilization fund. Is that because you're not leaving the total annual cost of the health insurance without the holiday in the budget?
Right. The budget would reflect that reduction that we're going to receive.
Okay, so how much are you looking to put into the stabilization fund?
I'm estimating that figure around 350,000 that we would.
Okay. And then basically what that's going to do is take away some of the hurt from the increase in 2023?
Yes.
And because basically next year it will look like a significantly larger increase because of that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'll open it up to questions from anybody on the finance committee. Oh no, everybody's knocked out.
Did I put everyone to sleep?
No, I'm sure nobody's sleeping. I think people are just, again, it's a lot of information to try to take in.
Yeah, so I guess I have a couple questions. So on the health insurance, why is it coming in so much lower? Is there a reason they're given for why it's?
So our rates are based on our loss claims. So the rate renewal is based on that. There's a couple factors going on. So loss claims, we have a good loss claim history. With Maya, because it's a health trust fund, they pull out the largest, really expensive claims like into the trust. So if we did have, some really large claims, which I'm not aware of that we do, because they would point those out, those would get pulled out of our calculation. Secondly, we participated in that post 65 program. So when they asked us if we wanted to participate, they promised a 2% rate reduction off our this year's going into fiscal 22, our rate renewal for active plans. So in reality, our real rate would be 2.47.
So that is a one-time?
It's a
2%?
one-time, yeah. Because we'll see a long-term savings with shifting those employees out of the active plans onto Medicare plans. And the last thing I mentioned with the vision plan, they're looking just to assign more of the membership up so that's an incentive that their board of directors will take up every year. If we do sign on to the vision plan, we may see a 0.5% reduction on our rate next year as well. But they make that decision, the board of directors for the trust, every year. It's not a guarantee, but this year they're offering it. And it would be a new plan for the town.
Okay.
You okay?
My other question, what's that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My other question, there was a education and enforcement coordinator that was grant funded. Is that just a one-year grant and then after that they go on non-grant funded?
No, we receive this grant every year. It's the Recycling Dividends Program grant. That grant we've used it, and actually the state has said they're going to be changing. So if we don't use what we're given, we may be penalized in the future. So we've historically used it on the compost bins and rain barrels and that such, but we can use it for education, enforcement of recycling, and so it can be used towards that. So it would be, this position would only be around if we were able to use it through grant funds.
Right, and this is also a position that was initially picked up as a shared position with other communities, is that correct?
That was a discussion that we'd have to re-pick up that came, we talked about last year with communities.
Okay, you all set there, Chris?
Well, one other question is what's the current thinking on the capital plan? Are we thinking to go lower in priority to add additional projects on?
That's part of my recommendation is, so to wait for our Montechusett assessment. Last year, we were surprised by our assessment amount. This year, when I've talked to the business manager, our enrollment would only changed by 1. And so I'm hoping that our estimate will be pretty accurate. And since they also have additional funding that they can use to offset their assessments, that will be favorable for the town. But so it will depend on a couple different of the unknown factors as far as the recommendation, but it would be in my recommendation to put potential more funding towards capital.
Okay. Peter,
Could you, I'm having a hard time following the economics or the thinking behind this vision plan thing. It seems to me if the employees add coverage, which isn't gonna cost anything, the town saves money. And maybe I'm not understanding this, but could you
Sure.
just color that in a little bit more?
Why we wouldn't do it?
No, why it seems
where's
like a
the
deal too
savings?
good to be true, I guess is the
Yeah.
question that I'm
Well,
asking.
That's my opinion too. I said this is, it's a no-brainer, in my opinion, but we are required to go through the PC, which is they have a member from each bargaining unit on that committee. So they bring it back to their units and
Well, I
Right, but
guess
the question
just that-
I'm asking is like, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm gonna sell you a $10,000 car for $1,000, like, I know that's a deal too good to be true. It seems like we're getting more than we're putting out, both between the town and the employee. Where's the benefit coming to the insurer, I guess?
I think
What do they-
basically, I think what happens is if you pick up a vision benefit, there's costs that may be picked up in that voluntary benefit that are now no longer picked up in the health insurance plan.
no,
No? Okay.
no. Not with this case. So our health insurance plans does offer a free eye exam, as part of our health insurance plan. But this would also, for instance, employees that don't take health insurance through the town may not have a vision plan offered elsewhere. So this just would be something optional for them to sign on.
Okay, so they must
there-
just be trying to sell the vision plan.
Is there any, I guess that's what I'm getting to, is there any downstream potential pitfall here where it seems like a really good deal now, but in a year from now, they jack up the rates on this thing and all of a sudden we're, shelling out hundreds of thousands of dollars for vision plans?
No, so it's an open enrollment once a year. So if in a year, and we get those rate renewals before open enrollment. So people could opt out of it at that time, but they were guaranteeing a 4-year rate.
Okay. I guess I'm still a little baffled, but maybe I'll learn more over the time. You mentioned that you had budgeted for a 15% increase for the trash contract. And I'm wondering if you could comment, what are the additional costs that you're expecting? Is it just more expensive to recycle, or what are you thinking there?
Yes. So based on, so the market, that's what it's based on, is industry experts saying right now it's more expensive for recycling costs, because we all know from the past few years about recycling, but as trash removal as well, because of the pandemic, more people at home generating more trash. All the market industry experts are saying that the cost of this service is going to exponentially be more for all of us.
Are you forecasting an increase in revenues in terms of bag sales and that kind of thing?
No, so if there were an increase, and once we go out to bid, which should be shortly, and get our bids in, we'll have to look at the pay-as-you-throw program, and that's a complete wash. It's not made to make money. We would have to adjust the rates of the bags if we couldn't support it through the expense.
Are we selling more units, have we noticed, in the last 6 months than in previous years?
As far as pay-as-you-throw bags?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I can ask our bag vendor, because they supply our retailers with the bags.
Thanks.
They haven't told us that they have,
Okay.
but Good question.
You would figure if the experts are saying that we're throwing more stuff away, we'd be selling more bags.
Yeah.
Seems to me.
And just one other thing on that is Casella did tell us that they weren't going to be bidding on the next contract.
That does not break my heart.
But one less.
I mean, I understand. Yeah, I understand the economics of it. It's a good program. I'm a participant, and I would love to see it improved upon, I guess is all I would say there. One final, and this is more of a comment than a question, but I think it's something that we should be thinking about. I made a similar comment last year. Because of the way the difference in how we budget the school department versus everything else, when you look at year-to-year increases, it often is not an apples to apples comparison. In reality, when you look at it, the school department versus rest of town government. And I was struck by this year, we were able to fully fund one of the superintendent's scenarios. By the way, she did outline another scenario that was more than the 3.25 or whatever it was scenario that was also needs-based. So this isn't a panacea budget, I don't think, from the perspective of the school department. I think we should be careful about how we classify that or describe it. But we're making that budget on the savings of health insurance. And those are effectively one-time savings that theoretically next year will come back and we'll have to spend that money and probably increase the school department budget on top of that. So I think we need to be very careful about what we tell ourselves we're doing with respect to how we're funding the school department. Meanwhile, we're taking that savings for the rest of the budget, theoretically, and moving it into a stabilization account, which I fully applaud. I think it's a great idea. But it seems to me that there's a bit of a shell game going on here in terms of who's getting increases and who's not relative to the health insurance savings. I don't have a solution to the problem. I understand the accounting here, but it does make things look different than they are.
Mhm.
Just to comment on that, the estimate that I would, and based on other factors of when they come in and the cost of what the recommendation for the deposit into the health insurance stabilization account, a significant portion of that would be related to the school insurance within their budget that they'd be saving this year. It's not a significant portion on the town side.
Oh, I think the question probably more goes to, of that 200,000, like say, there's a $200,000 savings over there on the school side.
Mhm.
Is that where you're pulling the money to put into the stabilization account, or is that money now free to be appropriated by the school department?
The savings?
Yes, the 200 of the on the month, on the holiday.
So
I think that's what Peter was speaking to. I mean, I could be wrong, but I
What
think
I'm
that's
speaking to is that we made the budget based on savings
Right.
for health insurance, and it's one-time savings. I get that's my only point. I don't
right.
fully understand, based on your comments, Heather, exactly the flow of money into the health insurance stabilization account. My understanding from your presentation was it's unappropriated revenue effectively that's going into that account. So I don't quite understand how it goes from the school department into that account. Maybe this is a deep dive we can do as part of one of our follow-on meetings, just to have a better understanding of where insurance money is coming and going. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Dave.
Yep, two particular items. First of all, with all the collective bargaining agreements that are pending, do we have those increases built in here somewhere?
Yes,
On both
built in.
sides?
Yeah, built into the budget. Yes.
So they're built into the budget as salary
Salary
reserve?
reserve.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Um,
right, so all of it's in salary reserve and all of the agreements are expected to come to town meeting in spring, yes?
Yes, the three from
Three
the
of them, okay.
3 on the town side and 3 or 4 on the school side. Is that correct? Seems to me there were a total of 6 or 7 unions.
Yeah.
That's probably true. The schools just don't come to town meeting.
Mhm.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, the rationale between, and this would be as we go into town meeting more than at this point, but would you say that if we maintain that 800,000 plus in unappropriated free cash, that it would make more sense to push more free cash to cover the DPW vehicle rather than take it out of special purpose stabilization and then put an amount in the same year back into special purpose stabilization? It just seems like a throw it in there, pull it out type of thing.
Yeah, I don't, I see what you're saying. I don't agree with, putting money in and taking it out in the same year. Like, so if we did have available funds, depositing it into the special purpose stabilization and not transferring it out, it would be one or the other.
Yeah, so your comment and the possibilities for use of that money included stabilization. Were you talking about regular stabilization account?
Yes,
Increasing that deposit?
yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could, what is the, and I know you said this in a recent meeting, what is the balance of the special purpose stabilization account? Do you know offhand? I know you said it in a recent meeting and I just don't remember.
I did. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue.
Karen's
I
got it.
guess what I'm getting to,
Karen's got it.
what I'm
Karen's got it.
getting to is I know we've got some other really big expenditures like fire trucks and ambulances and stuff. So I'm, curious what the long-term effects are there.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, I thought you had it when you unmuted.
No, I wanted to let you know that I can definitely get that number.
If I could ask one more quick question, it's really a departmental question, and I suppose we could do it during the fire chief's presentation. But capital planning talked about this, and I'm wondering with that $10,000 line item increase for turnout gear, is that going to be enough to bring us back into the ability to rotate gear rather than a wholesale purchase through capital planning every few years? Or are we going to need to supplement that even more?
Let the chief answer.
Hi, Chief.
Good evening. My thought would be that combined with the capital purchase and then increasing the budget line item, that should push off needing a capital purchase for several years at least. And if we can periodically increase it in the budget line item, we may not need to do a capital purchase at all for that.
Right. And I think the discussion during capital planning about those items was that if at all possible, that committee, or at least I felt that was a way for us to, we should be pushing in that direction so that we're not purchasing a whole bunch of gear, including for the police, the bulletproof vests, all in one huge purchase every X number of years. I guess bulletproof vests, it's every 5 years. So we buy a whole bunch of them, they sit and get used as much as they're needed, but then have to all be turned over again 5 years later. I think turnout gear has a little bit better turnaround than that, but probably not all that much better.
It's generally a 10-year max lifespan on it, and being able to replace 5 sets of gear, we should be able to, as long as we can continue to replace 5 sets a year, we should be able to sustain that beyond the 10-year lifespan of what we purchase all at once in the capital.
Right. And the reason we got to the point is we did with the gear is that the cost of the gear has increased faster than we've increased the budget line. And
Correct.
I just hope that we keep up with it from here on out. Thank you.
I can answer that question. not an exact amount, but an approximate amount from the special purpose is 1,196,470 was the last amount.
And in the next 5 years, we're buying what for fire trucks and ambulances?
There's one large engine in fiscal 27, I think it is, for over $1 million.
5 years out. Okay.
Oh,
Chief, you're
Chief
muted.
will.
You're muted, Chief.
Chief.
He's having a great conversation.
I'm used to talking to myself. It happens a lot. The next ambulance would be around 2026 and an engine would be around 2027, 2028.
What's an ambulance replacement cost?
Without looking at the capital plan right now, I couldn't give you the exact number off the top of my head, but it's going to be probably. What was that?
396.
396, I think.
I'll go along with that.
All right, so we're looking in the vicinity of about 1.5 million in fire equipment in the next 5 to 6 years.
Starting around 2026,
4 to 6 years.
roughly. Yeah.
Hopefully
Okay.
that gives us an opportunity to take care of some of our infrastructure issues before we hit those big projects also. Give us
Yeah,
a-
I mean, the fact that that stabilization account exists is awesome. I mean, you know,
Yes.
I've said it before, we're in so much better fiscal health than we were 10 or 15 years ago. It's amazing.
Yep, absolutely. All right, any other questions related to the budget from anybody at this time? I mean, we certainly will have plenty of opportunity to ask all of the individual department heads as they come in to present. I guess actually I will go back to the one question that I did have was, we are replacing a facilities position. Is that something that we've currently been, or services provided that have been currently provided through contract services? Or is that just something that hasn't been addressed or done?
So that position went away in fiscal 20. And we've used those funds more for like engineering services, all related to building projects. And because that was put into the contracted services line. So it's helped with getting more building projects done, but we really are lacking in maintenance people. One person doing 8 buildings is not sufficient at all.
Thanks. Then with that, we
Sure.
can, oh, I'm sorry, Dave, I just
Yep,
saw your
Not a
hand.
problem. I snuck it in there.
You did.
Yeah, just a procedural question through you to Heather. The stabilization fund, that will end up being an article to be created by town meeting?
Yeah, so there should be an article to create and an article to transfer.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Going once. Okay, we'll step off to, is there any town manager or finance director report for the evening?
Nope, none other
That's all
than.
you, that's all you want to say, okay. Then thank you. Again, it was a lot of information to absorb. And then next week we'll be starting.
You have library, senior center, and land use next
Yep.
week.
And then also, I just to reiterate on anybody that was looking at that sheet for the 25th of February, we also do anticipate, and I just want to confirm at this point that we will be meeting at 6 o'clock with our reps to discuss the debt and any debt and OPEB questions
What day?
or actuary questions.
Yes.
What day?
February 25th.
The 25th. So our meeting will start at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. on the 25th. And that's the day that we're going to pick up the debt and OPEB questions. Okay, then with that, we'll go to minutes. The minutes are, we have minutes from December and January in the folder in the OneDrive. If people have had a chance to review it, I'm happy to take action on those tonight. Is there anyone who has not had a chance to review the minutes?
I have not, but if I'm in the minority, I would be happy to abstain if we want to get them passed.
Jay, you're muted, so can't read your lips.
I
We
did
have
not.
Okay. Then I guess we'll take them up. We can take them up next week. That'll be fine. But know that we will take them
No.
up. No, we won't take them up next week? Okay. Do we have any committee or department reports?
Real quickly, let's see, capital planning is really the only committee that's met since our last meeting. As forementioned by the town manager, if there is more funding available for capital projects, we will move down the list of the prioritized list from number 14 on down if we have more funding. There is a contingency or alternate projects built into the Ritter building that we chose at this time to let them stay as alternates so that maybe we could fund a couple more projects down the list. So that was decided at the last meeting. And at our next meeting, and the date escapes me, but we are planning to have a thorough discussion about the capital planning policies. We did a very quick review in the last meeting, and everybody knows how to access the policy now. So we'll be ready to address any changes that we'd like to recommend to the Finance Committee at our next.
Okay. So you don't need us to participate at this time?
No, I don't think so. I explained to them what we discussed in the last meeting, and they were comfortable with that. And in all actuality, the only part of it that's really going to have any substantial change would be the dollar amount that triggers a capital project. We may find that we want to change a word or two in other sentences, but the number is the biggest part of it.
Okay.
And very lastly, TC Passio's design committee will be meeting next Wednesday, and Parks will be meeting tomorrow evening.
Okay.
That's it.
Peter.
The school committee met twice since we last met, both last Wednesday and yesterday. I was unable to attend last night's meeting and have not reviewed the tape yet, so I can't comment, but there were no budgetary items on the agenda. At the previous meeting on the 3rd, the finance director and the superintendent did discuss both the budgetary ramifications of the insurance savings, which we've discussed tonight, as well as the elementary and secondary school emergency relief money that the town manager also mentioned. And there will be some forthcoming plans with respect to what to do with that funding. One of the nice things about it is it doesn't have to be spent in the next fiscal year. It actually has a time horizon of another 18 to 24 months, I believe. But the thinking that the superintendent indicated was that there will definitely be some needs coming out of the pandemic, both social, emotional, as well as kids falling behind and out of sync with curriculum and that kind of thing, that we'll need catch-up programs and programs to address those pandemic related issues. And so they could be summer programs or something along those lines, but I'm sure there'll be more to follow in that regard.
Okay. Any other committee or department reports? Seeing none. That was somebody leaving. Okay. Policies. I'm just carrying policies on the agenda. I don't know if anybody had anything that they wanted to discuss regarding policies tonight.
I do.
Okay.
So I just want to put this out there and maybe open this for discussion, maybe not, or maybe just get people thinking about this. I went through the town's policies this morning. I can't say I read them in detail. It's a 97-page document. But I did go through the fiscal policies with an eye toward the issue that I raised several months ago around the decision to buy the trackless snow blower. And the fact that chapter 90 monies, which are off budget, were used at the discretion of the town manager and the DPW director. And I understand that the Board of Selectmen was informed prior to that decision being made, but it was not a discussed agenda item. I don't believe there was a vote taken, and it was not brought to the attention of the Finance Committee. And with respect to Chapter 90, we borrowed a whole bunch of money and started another unwritten policy around pavement, because in years prior, we weren't appropriately spending Chapter 90 money on pavement. So I think that was an item that really deserved to be discussed prior to the decision being made. So I'd like to see a policy, and I can't find a place for it in the current fiscal policy construct, and maybe there's a place for it someplace else in the town policies, that establishes some kind of threshold around spending that is outside of the budget, that needs to be a discussed agenda item and approved by the Board of Selectmen prior to that spend. And I think the threshold for that is certainly open for discussion. The degree to which the Finance Committee gets involved and makes a recommendation, I think is something that we could discuss. But I do think that we need to come up with a plan for oversight of non-budget spending.
Okay. Does anyone have anything I'm not sure I'm ready for a discussion on that tonight, because there's a lot more information I'd like to have. And I think a lot more information I'd want to review, because I know that we have that whole spreadsheet of off-budget funding sources and who has responsibility for, or not responsibility, but who has the authority to spend funds from different accounts. And like whether the Board of Selectmen is interested in taking on that, because basically whatever we recommend to the Board of Selectmen, they'll either accept or not. So as we shape that type of a policy, that's something that we also have to keep in mind, is that it's going to be what the BOS accepts as something that they will or won't do. So, or that they feel should be something that would be a written policy. So I'm not sure. What will probably happen is, as we go through that whole process of those off-budget funds, that we keep an eye on, like, again, how we're wording this for the purpose of presenting it to the Board of Selectmen for acceptance. Chris, I can tell you're getting ready to say something.
Yes, I think it's kind of related to that, but I also think that like budget line items should be aligned to a board or committee. And not all of them need to be select boards. So it could be, conservation or parks or cemetery or others, so that if, unplanned charges are against that, or there's a lot of transferring of budgets that occurs line item to line item, that if it's related to, one of those departments, it should go before, I think, that committee, that the money is being transferred, and why, and what the implications of that should be. So I think it's somewhat related to this case as well, where that, that budget was held in a Chapter 70 account. But it would probably rightfully go in that case to the select board. But I think there's other kind of similar things that occur that a policy should be written that it's made known to the elected officials related to those budget line items.
Yeah, that makes, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's more than made known. I think it's publicly discussed and informed, right?
For sure, yeah.
It's the transparency part of it.
Transparency, yeah. Well, transparency and oversight, but yeah.
Okay, I'll make note. We should have some time in April that we can probably set aside for a lot of that. Any public comment from anybody on the committee? Any public comment from anybody in the public?
I just had just an announcement as well.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Select board, it was announced at that meeting, but the community outreach meeting, there will be a second community outreach meeting with Greenleaf regarding the proposed adult use cannabis retail at 88 Mass Ave, and that will be on March 10th at 7 p.m. So that will be re-advertised and re-noticed, but I just wanted to make everyone aware.
Okay, I'm just looking at our meeting and we're flashing on and off. That's us. That's, yeah,
Look,
I mean, we've been good all night. Basically, it just seemed to happen.
sorry, this is Pac here.
Yep.
I can do something about that, but it takes a long time. So if you guys are close to the end, we might as well just proceed.
Oh, yeah, no, we're close to the end. We're basically, there is no public comment. We just had the announcement on the hearing on the other issue. And with that, next meeting, again, next week, the department presentations begin. I'll get the agenda out hopefully soon. And I know that we already saw the Council on Aging budget presentation. I assume everybody got that. That's excellent. Thank you. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn at 8:21 p.m.
Second.
All in favor, Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Chris Menard,
All right,
Peter Beardmore,
Aye.
Evan Waters,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeone,
Aye,
and I for myself. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.